So again, welcome. And this is what we heard. All of that gospel points and moves us to a crescendo. So we have in the original soaring Greek prose by the evangelist John, and it reaches this point as we concluded the passage. And the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us, and we saw his glory as of the Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. And it says a couple times in the gospel that we are called to believe this. This Christmas story is true. This is why we're gathering here 2,000 plus years after, because God became incarnate. This happened. Now this woman over here has a sweatshirt that says believe, and it was very complimented by her spouse or significant other's rather nice green jacket, which he's now taken off. There you go. All right. Very nice. We are called to believe. That's why we're here as we celebrate this great feast. When you receive Christmas cards, you'll often see the word joy that marks this Christmas feast, either in big red letters or gold. And indeed, joy does describe today's feast. And we heard this last night in the readings, in multiple readings, the word joy. We hear it today in the first reading from Isaiah as well. And so we'll also go out to joy to the world. Now, what is joy? It's hard to define. It is great rejoicing. It's different than other things, but it's something where you know joy when you see it. So as I was preparing the homily, I went back in my mind to something that was manifestly joyful that I witnessed. And this is what I came up with. You know, we had the tragic shooting at Annunciation in late August, Annunciation Catholic School. And this young woman, Sophia Forkas, was shot in the head, and it did not look like she was going to survive. The doctors were preparing people that she would not survive, and it really was a miracle, her restoration to life. Well, this is what was joyful, is to see the day, I believe it was October 23rd, when she left the hospital, beaming, and her parents beaming with joy that her life had been saved and restored. And then she took a limousine to Annunciation to meet up with her classmates who were so eager to see her, and again, joy. Friends, this is what we celebrate at Christmas. It's our God who has come into the world to save us. This is what the Incarnation is all about. And we understand this. God chose to save us by entering into our humanity. This is the unique thing that even confounded C.S. Lewis years ago in a lively conversation with his good friend J.R.R. Tolkien. He said, I can understand that God would save us, but that he would become one of us? And Tolkien famously quipped back at his friend, he said, why limit God by your own lack of imagination? And of course, Tolkien was known for his great imagination. So he bows to our human flesh to redeem us from within our very nature. Last night at St. Peter's, Pope Leo gave a beautiful homily. If you're able to Google, it's on the Vatican website. He's done a lot of great writing and addresses, but this is right at the top of my list since he was elected Pope. It's very poetic at times. He says, into time and space in our midst comes the one who without whom we would not exist. We heard some of that in the prologue today to John's Gospel. He who gives his life for us lives among us, illuminating the night with his light of salvation. Friends, the Word made flesh, the incarnation of God, has also been a source of grace, a gift for the life of faith and the life of the church for 2 millennia. Think of art, architecture, music, literature. Think of the great acts of charity by our brothers and sisters who were declared saints. and those who do that humbly, who have maybe not been declared a saint. All of that happened because God became one with us, took our very flesh. None of this would be here. This grand basilica, had God not become one of us, John Ireland would not have made the bold decision in the early 20th century to build the cathedral in St. Paul and the basilica in Minneapolis at the same time. Oh, by the way, there's a backstory. They did one of these feasibility studies. They even did that back then. And they said to the people in Minneapolis and the areas here, would you like to support a cathedral in St. Paul? No. Such as it is, John Ireland said, all right, we'll build you one too. This is lovelier, by the way. It's smaller, but it's lovelier. I do say, and I'm a little biased. And so all of this happens because God became flesh. The church is the greatest patron of the arts in Western civilization, and it flows from the truth of the Incarnation. The readings for today speak of joy, a joy that is rooted in the truth of the Word made flesh. We hear this from Isaiah. Hark, your sentinels raise a cry. Together they shout for joy, for they see directly before their eyes the Lord restoring Zion. What a great message of hope. Of course, as Christians, we know that it is fulfilled in Christ, who restores us spiritually. And the opening prayer gave us a very interesting theological point. As great as creation was, even more wonderfully, we hear, is redemption and restoration. Why? Because God has entered into our history and taken our flesh, ultimately going to the cross out of great love for us. This is also something that Pope Leo said. So how do we respond? Does the truth of Christmas have the ability to continue to change history? This is what Pope Leo said. And he issues a challenge to Christians. Will this love be enough to change human history? The answer will come as soon as we wake up. We heard those words during Advent. We wake up from a deadly night into the light of new life, beholding and contemplating Christ as the shepherds did. The other thing that Pope Leo says, he's talked about the logic of littleness. The logic of littleness. You think of himself, 2 years before he was elected Pope, he was in Chiquelo, Peru, and nobody really knew who he was. Now, the people he ministered knew. They knew him well, and they were not surprised. But out of relative obscurity comes our new Pope, who's both an American, but very much formed by his missionary work in Peru. So friends, how do we respond to this great love that Pope Leo talks about? Can it have an opportunity to continue to transform the world and change history? It's up to us to participate with God's grace in order for that to happen. And I'm going to close here by saying our response is to become people of light. People of light, people who choose light and goodness over darkness and recrimination. And what does that mean? Well, it means to light the way to Christ, to put an emphasis on Christ like John the Baptist did. He testified not to himself, he testified to Christ and the truth of his identity. This is what we must do in our world today. Also to testify to the dignity, to shed light on the dignity of every human being made in the image and likeness of God, and to oppose any sort of darkness that would seek to treat people as instruments rather than human beings who possess inviolable dignity. And for Christians, friends, this is not politics. This is 101. This is basic Christian ethics rooted in the Hebrew Scriptures, the understanding of justice and the teachings of Jesus. History will record whether Christians stood up authentically for our brothers and sisters. And indeed, yesterday, Archbishop Hebda exhorted us here in the Basilica to do that, to open our hearts and welcome our neighbors, to treat them with respect and dignity. This must be our response. And also to always shed light on a pathway to peace. Peace in our homes. Peace in our conversations and the words that we choose. Reconciling with someone with whom we have been estranged, right? And I said this at the 9:30. This applies to my family as well. We're all over the map politically, and it gets pretty tense at times. To treat everyone with dignity, but to start that first with relationships and family. Friends in Christ, I believe that this truth of the Incarnation does have the power to change history and transform our world. It begins with us as Christian disciples. When we choose to be people of light, the world becomes a little brighter. People's burdens that they carry become a little lighter. And the truth of the Christmas story, again, has the power to transform the world. Merry Christmas.